I'm with author Angus Douglas, who's also a book collector. Angus, tell me, if you had to find a piece of treasure, what would that be?
Well, there are actually two great pieces of treasure that are missing from the South African historical canon. You would have to say not just one treasure, there would be many dozens of letters that were written between Jan Smuts and Princess Frederica. Princess Frederica eventually becomes the Queen of Greece, although she herself was part of she was German, she was part of the Hanover family. She was a great niece of, I think she was related to Queen Victoria, and Kaiser Wilhelm was her grandfather or great uncle, I can't quite remember. Anyway, so she was German royalty who then marries the successor to the Greek throne.
Yes.
She was eventually exiled from Greece later. But anyway, during the war years, famously, she was exiled to South Africa. So she lived in South Africa, more or less from 1939 to 1945. Okay. And she actually has a child during that time, and names one of her children after Smuts, or after a member of the Smuts family, and stayed with Jan Smuts, and it was quite scandalous at the time. Yes. Because there's lovely stories of all the gossip that went around, because wherever Smuts was seen during that time, if he wasn't with Churchill in Egypt, he, in fact, when he flew to Egypt to meet with Churchill to Cairo, he would fly with Princess Frederica because her husband was in Cairo, so she'd go to visit her husband and he'd go to visit Churchill. But
and she was much younger than him as well.
She was easily young enough to be his granddaughter, never mind his daughter. She was so young, and she was an attractive figure. Although some commented on her rather plump Bavarian legs, I think, something like that. But she was certainly an attractive young woman, very charming, all the rest. And in fact, talking of legs, there were stories that we know when she had an interview. At the SABC or radio interview, whatever it was, I can't remember the exact story. One of the sort of cabinet ministers made a real point of going there and peering at her legs or something, which then, there was some story like that. Anyway, so Jan Smuts was very attached to her, and they'd have long walks and long philosophical conversations together. And of course, there was all sorts of gossip. Are they or are they not having an affair? And the child she had while she was here, could this even have been Smuts's child? Of course, we'll never know. But let me cut to the treasures I'm talking about, is that they wrote, I must get the exact figure, but it's certainly in the dozens of letters that went between them. Before, we're talking now after the war, when Smuts dies in 1950. So throughout their time that they knew each other, from the late 30s to 1950, when Smuts dies, they wrote, as I said, dozens, if not as many as 100 letters were sent back and forth between them. Yes. And amazingly, now Smuts's letters are all extant; they're all around. There's the Smuts papers, that Graham Smuts's biographer uses for a famous biography of Smuts. But there's only one remaining between Smuts and Princess Frederica, and that was one that Smuts sent to her, and that's the only one we've got of the, whatever it is, 100 or so that was sent. Yes. And the reason is that in 1950, when Smuts dies, she is now on the throne in Greece. She sends over one of her messengers to collect up all the letters that were in Smuts's keeping. This messenger, literally on the day that the news is out that he's dead, within days or however long it takes for an airplane to arrive here, this messenger of the crown of hers is here, and he collects up all the letters.
And let me guess, from Izzy Smuts herself.
From Issy Smuts, I think it's pronounced Issy Smuts, Smuts's wife. Well, it's a story. No, I don't believe it that she was aware of these letters. I think they were
Okay.
sort of privately held, but somehow this messenger of Princess Frederica, she's no longer Princess Frederica, she's now, as I say, the Queen of Greece. He finds them all, and he literally collects all of them up and off, and now they're gone. Then there's a chap called Pete Bjerkes who wrote some biographical books. I would really recommend, if you're interested in Smuts, that you get them. And the one is called Smuts as Women. He's got three, Smuts as Spirituality, and there's one, Smuts as Women, where he talks about all these intense relationships that Smuts has with these various women. For example, the Clark sisters in England. Anyway, so Pete Bjerkes, he was quite keen to get his hands on. He'd been close to Smuts, and he obviously knew that it would be a valuable thing to write in later years, which he ends up doing. So he now, of course, is late to the party, and all the letters are gone. They're gone to Greece, but he immediately writes to Princess Frederica, I'm going to call her that for now, and says, if you don't mind, can I come over to Athens? And just, I'm not asking to get the letters, I would just like to look at them. And of course, she point blank refuses.
That's interesting.
So
and she doesn't admit to destroying them either.
No, she doesn't say, look, sorry, I've destroyed this. She just says simply, no, you can't come and look at them. That's it, finishing cloth, and that's it. So to this day, I mean, she died. I can't remember when. You can look up her and research her. But to this day, we don't know where those letters are, and they're of some historical interest, you'd have to say. But they're lost to history. So if there's a treasure hunter out there, you can gain yourself some great fame if you can
And
somehow.
Angus, what do you think those would be worth?
Look, I'm not very au fait with the collecting market, but I would say, you've got to say it's close to priceless. You must say millions, surely.
Yes.
Of course, should the letters contain prurient details about their relationship,
Yes.
they're going to be worth a lot more.
That is a fascinating story. Thank you so much, Angus.
Thanks, James. But before we leave, can I give a punt? Because I do mention all of this, or some of this in my book, South Africa in the Name of the Father. And
That's brilliant. That's the book you are busy launching at the moment.
Yes, it's just been released on Amazon. Hard copies will be coming out. It's been released by a publisher in America called Defiance Press and Publishing. So look out for it. It's on Amazon, South Africa in the Name of the Father.
Excellent. Well,